You're standing at the front of a conference room and you completely blank on the final slide of your presentation. Or maybe you open your phone to see you've been publicly tagged in a highly critical post. Your heart rate spikes, your palms sweat. This physical reaction is the sound of an ancient biological defense mechanism snapping into focus. It is a tangible, physiological reality. This diagram shows the body's central stress command center, the HPA axis. When you experience a social threat, this network immediately floods your bloodstream with cortisol. Your blood pressure rises and your nervous system gears up for a life or death struggle. Which raises a rather strange question. Why does a missed promotion or a digital embarrassment trigger the exact same biological alarm system designed to save our ancestors from a starving predator? Throughout most of evolutionary history, social rank was entirely straightforward. You got it through physical force. You were the biggest, the strongest, and you used coercion and intimidation to take resources. We share this raw, muscle-based dominance hierarchy with our closest primate cousins. The physical threat is the entire point. But early human survival demanded intense cooperation. Hunting large animals and sharing childcare meant the collective group became far stronger than any single aggressive individual. Bullies suddenly became a liability to survival. If someone became too arrogant or tried to hoard food, the rest of the band would actively push back. Through gossip, social shaming, ostracization, or even collective violence, early humans effectively policed and eliminated would-be oppressors. To gain influence without getting exiled, our ancestors adapted. They developed a secondary pathway called prestige. Rather than demanding submission through fear, prestige meant earning deference because you offered demonstrable value, like specific knowledge or exceptional skill, to the community. Human evolution transformed status from a blunt instrument of terror into a social contract based on community utility. For this new system to function, the group had to know you were actually useful. Evolutionary biologists call this costly signaling theory. A signal of competence is only believable if it is inherently difficult, risky, or expensive to perform. If anyone could fake it, the signal would be useless. This image shows highly crafted Paleolithic tools. Fashioning these required massive investments of time and focus. You couldn't fake a hunt. And the most powerful signal was generosity. Giving away the spoils to the group proved trustworthiness and built vital social capital. Our biology evolved to heavily reinforce this behavior. When others confer prestige upon us, a neural network called the ventral striatum releases dopamine. Evolution made social acceptance physically euphoric to ensure we kept cooperating. Conversely, being kicked out of an early human group almost guaranteed death by starvation or exposure. To prevent this, the amygdala evolved to treat any drop in social rank or threat of exclusion as a fatal danger. We are literally wired to monitor our social standing as a biological imperative. The trigger is always armed, constantly scanning the environment for threats to our rank. That highly calibrated system worked for mobile hunter-gatherers. Then agriculture arrived. The ability to settle down and produce food surpluses introduced a new variable: permanent, storable property. Surplus meant some people could accumulate vast amounts of wealth, while others specialized in labor. The relatively flat, egalitarian bands fractured into steep, rigid hierarchies. In these larger, denser societies, you could no longer witness everyone's hunting skill or generosity firsthand. Direct proof of utility became harder to track, so status began to rely on visual shortcuts. Arbitrary cultural symbols like specific fabrics or formal titles that signaled your rank from a distance. The sociologist Thorsten Veblen studied how the elites in these highly stratified environments maintained their rank. He observed a behavior he called conspicuous consumption. The wealthy secure their status by deliberately buying expensive, entirely useless goods or constructing massive, empty monuments. The sheer waste is the signal. It broadcasts that you command so many resources you can afford to burn them. Civilization took an ancient, pro-social drive meant to foster community cooperation and twisted it into an endless, abstract competition fueled by hoarded wealth and artificial displays. Today, the resources we once shared for group survival are controlled by vast, impersonal institutions. To access the basics, security, healthcare, or a home, we must navigate competitive hierarchies that demand we prove our value every single day. Two specific factors amplify the strain. First, systemic inequality creates constant, highly visible wealth gaps. Second, there is no exit. Ancestrally, you could migrate away from a toxic hierarchy. Today, your fate is tied to the financial and social structures you are born into. Add to that the global scale of modern communication. Instead of comparing ourselves to a local band of 50 people, the internet forces our localized brains into a relentless, unwinnable comparison against the curated highlight reels of billions of people. But the most psychologically damaging factor is the cultural narrative of meritocracy. This ideology insists that success is dictated entirely by individual talent and hard work. When imposed over a deeply unequal system, it strips away any acknowledgement of systemic barriers. If you fail to achieve high status, the system tells you it is entirely your fault. Failure becomes a sign of personal deficiency. Inequality, lack of escape, global comparison, and a culture of personal blame work together to transform external economic disadvantages into a profound internal shame. They leave our biological threat sensors jammed in the on position. So when you feel that wave of imposter syndrome or that crushing burnout after a perceived professional failure, you are not experiencing a character flaw. You're experiencing the biological reaction of a brain operating as it evolved to, trapped inside a societal machine that chronically overstimulates its survival alarms. Over time, this sustained activation of the HPA axis floods the body with stress hormones, contributing heavily to measurable physical breakdowns, from hypertension and cardiovascular disease to severe chronic depression, which forces us to look past our individual symptoms and evaluate the structure itself. Is this baseline of continuous status threat and physiological damage an unavoidable feature of large-scale human civilization? Or is it possible to consciously design a social and economic reality that actually fulfills our evolutionary need to belong, without weaponizing our own biology against us?